Hi there, this is Helen Tarrant again from LA. Here with our whole team. Wow, it's massive. Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. You're here with Helen Tarrant, and today I'm going to talk about service areas, catchments, and any major freeways and things that it actually impacts your investment into a regional area. I mean, it's a different thinking when you're investing in regional to investing in a metro, that you've got to look at the town size, you've got to know what it services. Whereas investing in metro, when you're investing in Sydney Fringe, Brisbane Fringe, Melbourne, it doesn't really matter, because you know that there's enough population to service the area that needs the services, and that whatever they've got, you've got the demand because there's more demographic, more population moving into that area. So that doesn't actually matter when you're in metro. But in regional, most people dismiss places because they think it's too small, and they dismiss it because they think that because they are, it might be 10,000 people, or even 1,000 people, or even 25,000 people, that is actually too small for them to invest in. So this is why I want to talk to you about catchments. So a classic example is somewhere like Wangaratta, who has probably about 20,000 people in town, but they do a catchment of 98,000 people. If you add up all of the catchments that they have, it's 98,000 people. That is actually the equivalent of an Albury, equivalent bigger than a Wagga, and bigger than some large regional towns all along the strip of Melbourne, Sydney and Queensland. So for most people that comes as a surprise. They don't think that for such a regional town that seems so small, that when you drive past it literally is like maybe 4 streets, and then maybe extend further out by another 4 streets, that this could have a catchment of 98,000. That's why that area is booming, and the yield is compressing so much, and there's so little stock on the market because of its catchment. So it's these rare towns out there that you don't know, that I'm trying to get you to think of, and more to think about what to look for when you are investing in commercial property. So another thing is somewhere classically like Byron, where you would be looking at maybe perhaps less than 10,000 people when it's not peak holiday season. So maybe 3 to 6 months of the year it is non-peak. So that would be their winter. That would be perhaps not in their summer, so their autumn seasons, when there's literally 10,000 people. But in actual summertime and tourist season, they grow to 50, 60,000 people in that area. So what does that mean? That means that there is now triple, quadruple the amount of people in that area. And how does that affect the industry there? How does it affect commercial property there? You've got to think about. And if you're going to invest in that town, how does that affect your tenant and the stability and the type of tenant you're going to want to invest in that town? Other areas include, areas like Rockhampton and Yeppoon. Yeppoon is the seaside area of Rockhampton, so you're going to have a lot of local visitors there rather than visitors from overseas, because most of the overseas visitors do end up going to Cairns instead. Some of them will go to towns will go to Magnetic Island, but not a lot of them will actually end up going to Yeppoon, to Rockhampton. So that is actually the local population. So you've got to see if the local visitors, how that is going to affect that area in terms of tourism and everything else there. So that is why it's important to always look at the catchment. Somewhere like when you go inland for Rockhampton, there's areas like Emerald, there's areas like Bella, there's all of these little towns. Well, they're agriculturally driven. There's areas like Blackwater, which is mining driven. What do they capture? Apart from just the mining, do they capture any of the smaller towns around there? If they do, how much is that catchment? Is that worthwhile for you to invest in? I'm not saying to you it is worthwhile investing in those towns. I'm not saying that it is not. What I'm saying is that when you do your research and you're trying to decide in terms of weighing up your yield, you're looking further inland into more of the regional areas, and it's bordering on rural, you need to consider what the catchment is, and you need to consider that with the catchment, whether that's going to bring more people into the area and that is going to be sustainable for your tenant or not. So for example, if you're considering a bank building, for example, you're considering a bank building and you might be in regional, let's say in regional New South Wales, you've got to think about, okay, so where is the catchment? So for example, if you're looking at an area like an Orange or a Dubbo, so those areas are already large enough on its own. So like an Orange or Dubbo already has 30 to 50,000 population, but they also capture a lot of the other towns around. So you've got the Wellingtons who end up going to an Orange or going to Dubbo. You have the other smaller towns on the outside who need to access that town for essential services. It means banking, hospital, education, healthcare. All of those people are going to come into that town. So the town may actually be 150,000 people that they service, but in actual residents, there might be only a third of what they're actually servicing. And that's important because if you have a tenant and the tenant is a allied health tenant and you're thinking the small town is too small for their particular type of service, then you've got to look to see if the catchment is actually going to help their business survive, because it's all about the survival of your tenant's business to actually then make sure that you actually get the positive cash flow in your pocket and you can continue to invest. So it's all about making that assessment, and that's why catchments and service areas are so important. The other thing to consider is actually bypasses and highways and freeways and where that leads you and where the hotspot's going to be and where the overspill suburbs are going to be. So example is we see areas in Toowoomba where they have one side of Toowoomba where they have the freeways, where they have all of the industry and they have all the petrol station, all the childcare, and everything's congregated. But on the other side, which is the Highfield side now that have become developed, there was very large format industrial rather than your smaller format industrial that you're seeing gentrified on the other side of town. But it's because there isn't a bypass. But because now there's a new bypass being built into that area, where you find these large trucks coming through that area, you'll find that major petrol stations have now been built along that road, fast food, and as a result of that, on-flowing effect is that, it's making the shopping centres locally more vibrant as well, because people who are actually travelling through Toowoomba are going that route as well. And then the local heavy industry is changing into medium to light industry. So it causes a linchpin effect just because there is a new freeway or new bypass going through the area. So you've got to look into that, and that's looking into the future and seeing how the future actually will affect the longevity of your investments, because it's all about, to the best of your guesstimate, looking forward to the future. And this is some of the things we look at when we are actually working out whether a property is suitable for our client, or when we're thinking about putting a client into that deal. We're researching the area, we're researching what's upcoming, we're looking at whether it is the right property for that type of client because of the risks of the area. But more than anything, we're looking at what that area could be in 3, 5, 7 and 10 years from now, because we want to see if they're willing to hold, or should they hold for that long term as well. And then moving forward from there, we also assess how the changes in infrastructure, the changes in terms of demographic movement is going to impact on them. So whether that will actually create more competition, so more yield compression in the market, so more rises in terms of the rent, in terms of property prices and commercial property prices, or whether, because there's a lot of people, for example, in parts of Gippsland, in regional Victoria, people are actually leaving the area, then you're actually exposing yourself to risk, because you might end up with a longer term vacancy. You might actually end up with the fact that you need to reduce your rent to get another tenant in. So we look at all of those factors when we are putting a client into a property, and we're looking at all those factors when we are deciding if it is the right property, and as part of our due diligence when we're looking at specific areas. So if that's the kind of detail you like, and that's the kind of person you want to be part of your team, you want someone to really work in partnership with you to achieve your common goal in terms of commercial property, we are it. We are the company who is not just one who are the cookie cutter. We work with you, we understand who you are, we're here to build a portfolio with you. We can offer you anywhere from set and forget to uplift properties to construction, because we literally are end-to-end commercial property service for you, especially if you're starting out in the commercial property space and you don't know where to turn. So come in, book in a consultation with one of our commercial property strategists or myself. Click on the calendar link below, and look, I look forward to speaking with you and helping you in your commercial property journey. Until next time, don't stop hunting, don't stop searching for that information, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye for now.